What's up, guys? Welcome to the 24th Xamarin Android tutorial. And in this video, what we're going to be doing is looking into the recycler view in greater detail, okay? So in the previous video, what we did was we set up our recycler view by implementing an adapter and a layout manager and attaching those to the recycler view, and inside the adapter binding the data, okay? So what we have is a basic recycler view, okay? Now what we're going to be working on in this tutorial is adding and deleting items dynamically inside of the recycler view, okay? So we have a discard here, we have an add, and I've added these already, so if you download the project file, you'll be able to see, you should be able to see this. However, if you were following along in the previous video, we didn't cover this, and that's just because I think we've already done this before, and I don't think it's a good idea to just keep repeating myself. So we already know how to do this, and just to save time, I've already implemented this for us. However, if you want to implement this yourself, great. If not, just go ahead and download the start file down below, okay? But this is what we're going to be working on in this tutorial. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and start that project. And what we're going to do actually is start this up, and I want to show you everyone where we left off and what we have starting out and where we're going to go from there. Okay, so when you download that start file, you should have something that looks like this. All right, just a basic hard set recycler view, and then we have the add and discard actions, but they don't do anything right now. Okay, so that's the first thing that we want to do is we want to add some implementation of what happens when those actions get clicked. Okay, and then when we do that, if you remember, is on options item selected, and it's very common to do a switch case here on the item ID. Okay, so we're gonna have two cases, one where the user clicks on the add action, return true in that case, and the second is when the user clicks on the discard. So let's go ahead and make sure that we comment that accordingly. So add button clicked, discard button clicked. Okay, so in this case, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add a new email to our contact list, or I'm sorry, our email list. So how we do that, one way is like so, and we'll just do it something really generic like new name, and then for the subject, new subject, and then finally for the message equals new message. Okay, so now that we have that, we can now go ahead and notify the adapter, which we need to do, that its data set is no longer valid. Okay, so the email is the data set, it's no longer valid because there's an item that has been added. So the easiest way to do this is to notify data set changed. And notice how I said the easiest, because in this case the easiest is not the best way to do it. Okay, so I will show you a different, better way to do it, but let's just go ahead and do that for now. And in this, what we're going to do is we're going to want to remove. Okay, so we're going to want to remove at, and then we'll do m emails count -1. So remove the last one added, right? And this is just basically something that I like to do. You can add or remove whatever one you want, maybe whatever's clicked if you want to add a click event. But right now I'm just going to add the earliest one that was added. Okay, and because we're adding and deleting items on the recycler view ahead of it, what we're going to do is we'll do, all right, not yet, we don't have to worry about that yet. So let's, because all we gotta do is just say that the whole thing has been invalidated, the whole recycler view, and that's what that does. Okay, so the adapter has been notified, and now it will refresh itself, and what we should see is the adding of the new item, the new email. Okay, so let's go ahead and verify that this is working the way we expect it to. Okay, All right, so now notice that it's adding to the bottom, okay? Which is fine for right now, but that's not the example that I showed you. And there's an easy reason why that's not happening, okay? And that's because we're just saying notify dataset changed. And what that does, remember that I said it's not the best way, because what that does is forces the layout manager to tell the recycler view to refresh the whole thing, to refresh everything, okay? And obviously that's a really brute force, if you will, because of the fact that we don't have to refresh the whole view because only a few things have changed about it. Okay, we're only adding, in this case, we're only adding one line. In this case, we're only deleting one email. Okay, so what we can do is to be a little more specific, and with that, the recycler view will only redraw what it has to, and therefore it'll be a lot more memory friendly. Okay, so what we do is we do notify item inserted. Okay, and we say insert on to the top, which is the first element. So insert on the top of the recycler view to get that effect, that animation effect. Okay, and then the same thing can be done here. We want to notify that an item has been removed. Okay, and we want to remove it from the top. Okay, because remember, this is the first. So the way we're adding and deleting items is a little different than when we usually do. And this is because I like to change things around and show you guys some new stuff and challenge ourselves to think differently. And with that, you sometimes you have to code out some stuff that's different, but you know, you learn something new in the end. Okay, so that's what I'm doing right now. But you guys don't have to follow this. You can add it on to the end, and it will just correlate really easier, like how the list view works. But here, notice that we're actually adding items onto the top. Okay, so we're adding and deleting items onto the top. Now notice that because we're doing that, we like to get that effect of adding and deleting items from the top. However, because we're doing that, what's happening is notice how our new name and our new subject, that this essentially this whole email is not getting added. Tom just keeps getting added, and we're not adding Tom, so just something's not right. Okay, and this is where you kind of gotta think about it and really stare at it for a second and say, you know, what's going on. So what's happening, guys, is what we're doing is we're inserting an email, right? And we're inserting it into position 0. So okay, so what that says is the adapter says, okay, insert an item at position 0. Alrighty, no biggie. So what it does is it comes over here and it will bind the data now, this new item that it's been called to do, the position we specified is 0. The position right here will be 0. Okay? And with that, you'll have a position of 0, which m emails 0. So if this, in this case, runtime, it'll be 0, right? And what that m emails 0 is the first item, right, in the emails list, which is Tom. And that's why it's trying to add Tom, okay? Because it's trying to add at position 0, which is what it is. And we can go ahead and clarify this if we just run it. So let me take that breakpoint off because it will bind the first few times with, so we don't want to look at that. All right, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and set a breakpoint, and we can add our new email, and we can verify right here or right here, down here, that our position is 0. And we can come down here, step into the code, position 0. So what's going to return, we can come into here, and we can go into our emails, the position 0 right here, right? And this is Tom, okay? So that's why it's adding Tom. And the way that we fix that is we simply invert it, because we're adding, it's natural to add things to the bottom of a list, but we're actually adding it to the head, okay? So simple fix, once we figured it out, all we need to do is now we just need to flip it, okay? And the way that we can do that is pretty simple. We just need to flip the position, all right? So what we can do is we just do int index position equals m emails count. So the number of elements minus 1, which will give us the last index, right? minus position. Okay. So now what that does is it inverts it, okay, and it gives us the correct position that the data set that needs, okay. So we'll just change that to here. All right, and notice that that's going to work perfectly, because if we look now, and we'll verify this, what's happening now is if you notice the position is, when we add it, the position was 0, right? So it was 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So remember when you added it, like I showed you in the breakpoint previously to this, it was 0. Well, now index position comes in and says, okay, the count is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And remember +1 because the count's actually 5 because we just added an item. Okay, it's just not showing up here. So it's actually 5, right? -1 is 4. Okay, so 4 is the last position of the last, is the position of the last email in the email list. Okay, so that's 4 minus the position that we're currently at, which is 0. Remember, that's what we passed in. So 4 minus 0 is 4, of course. So the index position, the data that we need, is 4, which is perfect because that's the item that we just added. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, but we're going to add it onto the top of the list because that's what we told it to do. All right, and then now notice that everything, not everything, but this is working correctly as we expect. Okay, so we just simply need to invert it. Okay, and like I said, if you guys don't want to do it this way, that's fine, but I think it looks cool and it gives it a nice user effect. Okay, so and it's something different, and we come across this stuff, doing any kind of Android development, and have to think ways to think a little bit outside the box, and it helps us just become better developers in the end. Okay, so at least for me. So just a little trick that we can do there. All right, so moving on, and I just wanted to explain that well so to know that we were all on the same page there. So however, moving on, now what we want to do, now that we have that adding and deleting, what we can do, and once again we don't have to do this, but what I like to do is I don't want to have to call adapter, notify the adapter, notify that it's inserted, removed, or any other kind of method. I don't want to have to do that every time I email. I mean, every time I add an email, or every time, because I might forget. I might be adding emails in different classes, different methods, and I want to just have something do that for me. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my own list. Okay, that takes type T. Oops, class. I'm going to make my own list that takes type T. Okay. And then inside of this, I'm going to have an actual list, okay, of type T. Let's call it M items. Then I'm going to have a reference to the RecyclerView adapter, okay? All right. So now, let me go ahead and make a simple constructor. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm sort of going to mimic the list, okay, and some of the methods that I need to use, okay. And what I mean by that is I can do public void add, because the list has an add method, which takes item T of type T, okay, and I'm going to add it to my underlining list, okay, and there we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check to see if, at first I actually want to make a property, okay, for adapter to set it and to retrieve it when I need it. Okay, so the way I can do that is like so. All right, and then I'll just have a set that does adapter equals value. And then I'll have a get that just returns the adapter. Okay, so here I want to check to see if it does not equal null. So has it been set? If it has been set, then it won't equal null. And in that case, what I want to do is I want to do adapter.notify item inserted. Okay, and that's all I want to do there. And basically I'm going to be doing the same thing that I'm doing up here, but I'm doing it inside of here now. Okay, so and that's all that's going on there. Okay, just change that to that. And I want to do the same thing for the remove method. Okay, so I kind of want to mimic the remove method. Okay, and remove the position because we're going to do the remove at. And we want to remove at the position that we specify. And then once again, we want to check to see remove at. And then we want to check to see if the adapter is not null. So has it been set? So if it does not equal null, then what we want to do is we want to do adapter dot notify item removed. Okay, and we want to remove it from the head. Like, so we're basically doing exactly what we're doing over here, but we won't want that if we call add somewhere else or remove somewhere else. We're gonna have to keep calling that, and we might forget, and it might turn into a bug later. So we want to just write a class that'll do most of that for us. Okay, and that's all I'm doing here. So what I also want to do is I wanted to have an indexer like so that gets and sets this. Okay, so we've gone over indexers before, but if you don't remember, all this is doing is returning and allowing the list to be used like we use a list. Okay, and if you don't really understand what that means, probably because I didn't explain it very well, let me show you firsthand. Okay, so let me just have this set. So we're going to set it where we'll do m items equals and then equals value. Okay, and all that does is it lets us use it like we use a list. Okay, so when we do m emails, you know, bracket 0, that's going to return the email at position 0, right? So all that does is it comes into here 0, and then it calls actually this method. Okay, and it gets 0, indexes 0 in this case, and what it does is it returns it, or it sets it depending on what it needs to do. So that's all that's doing right there. It allows us to be able to use this shorthand. Okay, so and then last, all we need is a property that returns the count, the number of items in our underlining items list. Okay, and we need a return keyword there, and that's all that does, because we do use that method down here, remember? So now that we have that, we have something that's going to call and do all that stuff for us for whatever method we're using. Okay, as long as we have an email my list class. Okay, which is what we're going to do next. We're actually going to change this to my list. Okay, and we'll change that here. Just need to do some refactoring, and that's now on my list that has a remove method, right? And then we'll come down here, change it here, change it there. Okay, and now what the beauty of this is, now we no longer have to call this, because this is called in our class now. Okay, that takes care of all that for us. So whenever we add and remove items anywhere, it's going to take care of that for us, because it's going to be checked here. So as long as we set the adapter, okay, so down here what we can do is we can do m emails dot adapter equals m adapter. Okay, so that'll come into this property that we have set up, and it'll do a set, right? Because we're actually setting it, and it does m adapter equals value, which the value in this case is m adapter. Okay, so now that we have that, we can use adapter over here. It won't equal null, so then it'll notify everything. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this, and let's make sure that everything's working the same. Okay, so it should be working the same, nothing should be different. However, a lot of the work is now being done for us. Okay, and this is one of those things that doesn't really seem very useful at first, because we only are calling it twice. But if we have a big project, doing stuff like that saves you a ton of time in the end. Okay, and a lot of headache if you do have some bugs in the future. Okay, and then there's been so many times where, like, you know, I just bang myself in the head because was like, I wish I did it this way. I wish I just did it this way. But it just piles on itself, and the amount of time to fix it would have been is so much more than what it would have been if you just implemented something that took care of things for you. Okay, so this is just a good example of that. But once again, not necessary for it to work. So, but I thought I'd give you guys an idea of what you can do right here to make it a little easier on yourself. Okay. So now that we have that, we have a listener that's over here, and it notifies and does things properly for us here. What we can do now is we actually want to set up a click event, okay? And because the support library for the RecyclerView is still in beta, there's not really too much support for that, but there are some ways that we can do it, and it does kind of couple the adapter and the RecyclerView in the ways that I don't like, but for now it will work, and it's not such a bad implementation, but there can be better. But like I said, the API is still in beta at this moment, so we are a little limited on what we can use. Okay, so because this is brand new stuff, the RecyclerView is something that's brand new, but I wanted to make a video about it because I know it's going to be really big and useful in the next coming months with Android development. So I wanted you guys to have the first look at it. Okay, that being said, let's go ahead and add a click event. Okay, and what we can do is we want to add a click event on the entire row. Okay, so whatever row is clicked, and where we can do that is on the bind. Okay, so remember that the row is this whole thing, so the whole row, and remember the row is passed into my view. Okay, which is over here. This is a constructor, so view is the row, and then m main view is going to be the row, so the main view. All right, so what we can do here now is we can do my holder dot m main view dot click, and we'll wire up a subscriber that gets called when the view is clicked. Okay, and what we can do now here is we can have a click event that will will bring up the data. Okay, and we got to remember that we're going to be in the position to where we need to call. This is just one way to do it, guys, but right now the only way to do it is to actually call the recycler view and get the child position of that view. Okay, and that does a lot of the work for you. So we don't have the recycler view reference right now, which is why we need to come up here and we need to add it to the recycler adapter constructor. Okay, so recycler view, recycler view, okay, so now come into here and we'll make a global variable for the recycler view, and we'll just call it m recycler view, and we will initialize that here. And the last thing we need to do is we should be getting an error up here. Yep, because we need a second parameter now, which is just the recycler view, which we have right here. Okay, and we'll come down here. Now that we have that, we can do get child position. Okay, and we give it the position of the view that was clicked. Okay, and remember the sender is the actual view. Okay, it's an object. So what we need to do is we need to tell the compiler that sender is actually a view. Okay, and to cast that to a view, which it's happy to do for us. Okay, so now that we have that, we have the position of the view that was clicked. Okay, but do remember that now we are adding the deleting items on top. Okay, on the head. So we're going to need to do the index position trick that we do down here. Okay, and we can do the same exact thing. We just do index position equals email. So get the last index, last email in the emails list, and we will minus it by the position. Okay, so this will give us the index. So this is the position in the view, and this is the actual index position that we need to get the data from. Okay, so then now we can do, something like console.writeLine and then we can do m emails, and we can do index position dot, and then we can do name or something like that, okay? And then I'll print out the name, okay? Of course, they're all the same name, you know, but these ones aren't. So we'll go ahead and, you know, test that on that and make sure that this is working properly the way we expect it to. All right, so let's go ahead and add an item. Let's do a click. Okay, so we got Tom down here at the bottom. Then we got new name. Tom's comes up again, new name. Delete a whole bunch of these. Tom's now here, new name. Okay, so everything seems to be working fine. The data is correlating correct with the view position as long as we flip it. And all is well. Okay, so down here is where we can do any kind of anything else we want. I just printed it out, but we can go to another activity or anything that you guys would like to do in that, do it here in the click event, okay? So now that we have this finished, guys, what we can do is start doing some really fun stuff with this recycler view. And I mentioned some card views, okay? So the card view is something that, I think in the previous tutorial I mentioned it, the card view is something that is used heavily in the Google Now and the Google Plus applications right now. So currently, if you go on to Google Plus, you'll see like these essentially these views that are look like cards, kind of not a list view so much, but a card that scrolls, and they're all different sizes and they look really cool. And that's basically a card view, and I really love them. It's a really great idea that Google had. And what I want to do is I want to implement, okay? So what we're going to do the next tutorial is now implement some card views. And the reason why the recycler view is so important when it comes to the card view is because the card view has so much data in it. There's images, there's buttons, there's view, there's text, there's so much stuff going on in each card that it becomes very imperative that we have a widget that can recycle and reuse these cards efficiently, okay? So a standard list view wouldn't really do. We can probably rig something up that would do it, but it wouldn't be efficient because normally these card views have so much in it. So we really need something that's going to recycle and reuse memory efficiently, okay? And that's where the recycler view does a great job at, okay? So using the recycler view to implement card views is very ideal, okay? And now that we have the knowledge and the skill to do this now with the recycler view, we can now go into the next tutorial and code up the card view with little leads, okay? There's not really too bad doing the card view. The hardest part is setting up the recycler view, which you've already done, okay? So in the next video, we're gonna set up card views like the Google Plus app, and I hope you guys really take off and enjoy it, because there's lots of stuff that you guys can do with those card views. They're really, really neat. All right, guys, so just a little heads up for what's gonna come in the next couple tutorials. So do stay tuned. Thanks for watching, guys.